Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome back to the It's Attainable Real Estate Investing Show. It is episode number 20. Can you believe we made it to 20 episodes, 20 shows together? I've enjoyed it every step of the way, and I hope you have too. Sharing financial, investing, and real estate investing knowledge to help you along your journey. Whether it's me sharing knowledge with you from my experiences and my knowledge, or having others on the show to share their experiences and their knowledge with you. Today's show is no different. We've got Derek Deverna on the show. He's a real estate investor, but not just an investor, a real estate wholesaler, agent, and now real estate broker. He's going to share with you what all that means, what he invests in, where he invests, and a whole lot more. Coming up in just a moment.
Welcome to the It's Attainable Real Estate Investing Show, where you will learn about investing, the power of real estate investing, and how to invest in it. Whether you have the time or even if you don't, you're going to see it's attainable either way. And now your host, who always wants to share knowledge with you, Christopher Balkin.
Okay, and now we'll welcome to the show, Derek Deverna. How's it going, Derek?
It's going well. How are you?
All right, I'm doing good. It's a
Good.
frigid morning up where we are.
Yeah, true.
All right, so I read to the listeners your bio. So you graduated from University of Cincinnati, and then at some point you got into real estate. Why was that? Tell us what led you down that path a little bit.
Sure. I chose to study psychology and philosophy in college.
Okay.
And coming out of that, regardless of your grades, no one's looking to hire a philosopher. So I naturally knew that I would need to either go to graduate school or figure something else out. Luckily, kind of fell into real estate very shortly after graduating, got a job, got my real estate license. I've been in the business since 2015. Strictly investment properties for me, nothing really retail other than my personal residences that I've, purchased over the years.
Okay. Tell me a little bit. This is a little off from real estate, but tell me a little bit about the philosophy side. What drew you into that?
I've always done what I liked to do, and it's treated me very well. So if you enjoy doing something, you're going to continue doing it. You typically are good at something if you like doing it. So I liked those classes. Those are the classes I chose to focus on. Caught a lot of slack from my friends that were mostly business, and that's fine. Everyone
Yeah.
has a different path. I am glad that I did that because it forced me to take a commission-only job straight out of college, and I've never worked a non-commission-only job since taking that job. So I make my own hours. I really enjoy doing that. I really enjoy the freedom. I understand it's not necessarily for everyone, but it works for me.
All right. Awesome. Awesome. And when you say commission, you're talking about the agent side of it.
That is correct, yes. Agent side of it or wholesaling side of it, you're eating what you kill in the sense that you're not getting paid unless you are working and putting deals together.
Okay. Okay. We're gonna get to the wholesaling a little bit too. I want you to share a little bit more about the wholesaling. But on the agent side, what are you doing, or what were you doing as an agent at the time when you started?
So at the time I was in Cincinnati, Ohio. I'm now located in Toledo, Ohio. I moved back here in 2019, spring of 2019. And in Cincinnati, I worked for a very specialized real estate brokerage that only did investment properties. They would sell flips to flippers. So we would find deals, whether that be on the MLS or through an off-market resource like online auctions or another wholesaler or our own mail. However you can get the deal and then mark it up, 5, 10, 15 grand, depending on what, you could mark it up with it still being a good deal for the end investor. And then we would sell and I'd get paid on the margin that we made on the deal.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. So a little different side to a traditional residential agent.
Very different, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, now
Awesome.
I run a brokerage in Toledo, Ohio. So I'm a licensed real estate broker. I do property management and work with mostly out-of-state investors, though I do have one Toledo investor that just doesn't have the time to manage his own portfolio.
Okay, awesome, awesome. All right, I want to come back to that. Now, when you first started, what were your initial goals when you got into real estate?
The goal has always been financial freedom. I think that's a lot of people's goal in this business. I just want to be able to travel if I want to travel or leave without things kind of falling apart, I guess, and me not being the only person responsible for that. So currently, I do everything myself. I'd like to move more so into hiring like maybe an agent or someone that can work for me and kind of do what I do, and it'll allow me to kind of have more freedom, I guess.
Okay, okay, so financial freedom. Yeah, that's a big goal for a lot of us. Part of the reason why I kind of put the podcast together for others to kind of show them there's an alternate route besides just the typical W-2. You found that out early yourself, but yeah, certainly there's an alternate route, whether it's additional income or replacement income. There is another way to become financially free. And when Derek says financially free, to enlighten on that more, he's talking about just the ability to have your expenses covered without you kind of having to put in an equivalent time to earn the income for that expenses. Would you agree?
I do, yeah, 100%. So not trading hours for time or hours for dollars,
Yep,
right?
yep. I like that.
Having the
Yep.
dollars kind of just come to you, or living a lifestyle. I mean, there's a lot of ways to do it. You could be incredibly frugal and live a very cheap uh, lifestyle that doesn't require you to bring in home a lot of income, or you can go the alternative route and build your passive income to a level that is so high that you don't have to worry about working.
Right.
So there's multiple ways to go about it. I think everyone probably has their own way because everyone's an individual, and different things work for different people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree. I always say that, like you said, everything works differently for different people, but it kind of starts a little bit with getting your expenses under control is kind of what I tell people, so that then when you go to cover those expenses, they don't keep rising, and you never get there if your expenses keep rising and you keep trying to get income to cover it. It's just a big circle, a rat race, as they call it.
That is the biggest. The expenses is that's what's going to allow you to invest. You can't invest if you don't have money. I mean,
Yeah.
typically, unless you're very creative. Uh, I've the no money stuff. I've never really gotten into that. That may work for some other folks, but I've always used my own cash or leverage like a partner's cash for my time.
Right.
There's different ways to do it, but you know, likely on your first deal, you're not just going to get someone to hand you all the money that you need and say, here you go. You need some experience first, so you're going to have to save some cash. And,
Right.
the best way to do that for me was taking half of my paycheck and putting it in a different account.
There
So,
you go. There you go. We
you know,
talked about frugality and getting your expenses under control in the last show or the show before, but the last two shows have been on investing and then kind of some alternate ways to get funding to invest. And part of that is just flat out saving and not spending
right.
every dime you make. All right, nice, nice. So you talked a little bit about wholesaling. Explain that more. You've done a lot of deals in your time since you graduated from University of Cincinnati. Some have been through agents as an agent, now as a broker, as a wholesaler. Tell us a little bit more about wholesaling. I haven't talked to the listeners or users about that a lot.
So wholesaling is essentially finding a deal that is such a good deal that you can afford to mark that deal up a few $1,000s, or I've had wholesale deals where they're as big as $50,000 on bigger projects in Cincinnati. So the deal is so prime that you are able to buy it for $50,000 and it's still a deal at $60,000. So you have that $10,000 of margin, and that's what you are paid for finding the deal. Now, not every deal is like that. Here in Toledo, I've found that the margins are typically smaller. I also don't charge as much now that I'm doing it on my own. So, we're able to help our investors out. If we're managing the asset, it's the least I can do.
Okay, okay, understood. And how are you typically finding those deals? Are those on the MLS or are you getting those somewhere else?
I'm a scavenger, so any way
Okay.
I can. MLS, obviously is probably the easiest and what people are most familiar with. If you type, Toledo, Ohio in to Zillow, that's going to pull from the MLS. So MLS is just a resource that realtors use to list your home for sale or find you a home to buy.
Okay.
MLS is a great resource, but there's a lot of competition, as everyone can see it. If you're sitting in California, you can see the same properties as me sitting here in Toledo. So there's just more competition, which draws more interest in the property and eventually inflates the price to where it's not as good of a deal as if it's an off-market deal where you're the only person who has access to that deal, or your wholesaler is the only person who has access to that deal, and you're not competing against a ton of other people.
Okay, okay. And so wholesalers can fit in. So you have your agent, and to help out the listeners know the difference. So you have your agents, and most people are used to that, whether it's you're renting or whether you're looking to buy a home, you usually hire an agent, or you look on the MLS, like you said, you can kind of help find them yourself a little bit. But agents bring a whole lot more value. But the wholesaler, where does the wholesaler fit in? Is it more so for an investor or for a individual looking to live somewhere?
It would likely be for an investor. Typically, wholesale deals, and I've done them where the end buyer ends up financing the property, but typically they're cash transactions, but most of the time. So, that's your attractive. That's how I'm able to get this seller to sell me their property under market value. I'm coming to the table with cash. It's going to be a very easy, quick close, and that's what they want. They don't want to deal with all of the traditional hassles of listing a property with an agent on the MLS. They want a swift, easy, quick transaction, and that's what we try to provide them with. And in order to get that, they're willing to cut the price a little bit on their property.
Okay, got it. Understood, understood. And so, what do you invest in today yourself? What type of properties?
So today I buy brick multifamily, and mostly small multifamily. I haven't quite gotten above the 4 unit mark. The 4 unit seems to be the sweet spot here in Toledo. There's a fair amount of buildings that fit that criteria, though I only buy in certain neighborhoods. But I like brick. I like multifamily. I like multiple people under one roof. That's not to say that I turn down a nice single family deal, though. There's whatever I can get. Like I said, I'm a scavenger. So wherever the deal fits, wherever the numbers work, that's what I'm working. I prefer brick multifamily or brick single family, though. I just like brick. The lack of maintenance needed on the exterior is nice. I also think they look a lot sharper, and people aren't really building fully brick homes unless you're in a crazy expensive neighborhood and this person is willing to spend a lot of money on their house. So, brick over time, I think, is going to be less and less available and therefore more and more valuable.
Okay, I like that. I was going to ask you why brick, but you explained it. Now you mentioned neighborhoods. You only buy in select neighborhoods. Why? Explain the rationale there.
Well, I only try to buy in neighborhoods that I would live in myself, and therefore I only put those investors that I work with in the same, because if I can't believe in it, then it's not, I'm not worthy to sell it. There's people that do invest in every neighborhood in Toledo and do very well. I choose to invest in West Toledo mostly. That's where I am now. That's where I live at. I live in an investment property. I live it. That's what I see. It's very convenient to get around town over here, and I like the neighborhood quite a bit. It's pretty diverse. It's cool as long as you're minding your own business. You're not getting in trouble. It's fun, and it's an interesting time in Toledo.
All right, all right. I like it. I like it. Derek and I invest in some of the same areas, so I know a little bit about what he talks about the different areas of Toledo. But yeah, I enjoy it there too, and it's good. It's good. So you mentioned that you self-manage. What has been your experience, or what's the difference between self-management or property managers? What's been your experience?
So I do self-management, and then I also do property management. So the only difference is me owning the property and me not owning the property. I really treat them the same way, but having a property manager or someone that is boots on the ground in the city that you're investing in is of prime importance, right? You're going to need someone there to take care of things when they go south, because they do. They're older homes typically in Toledo, 50 years or older, mostly every home that is in the portfolio. So there's just things that go wrong. I don't know, for whatever reason, this week we had like 6 drain clogs, like from it rained a lot, so I don't know if that was from the sewer or whatever, but these tenants have water, coming up through their drain, and their drain's not draining. We have to get out there and do that. If you don't have the connections here in Toledo to do that, then you probably should not be investing, because your tenants are going to be very upset with you, and that's never a good recipe.
Okay, okay. Now, you mentioned a moment ago about so you invest in Toledo specifically. Have you considered other areas, or because of what you just said, you like being close?
Well, Toledo needs enough help as is, and I've kind of transitioned to that mindset recently. And I've kind of always had it. I guess I've only invested in Toledo as far as Northwest Ohio. I do own properties in Cincinnati, and manage those from afar, but I had a network down there before I moved, so I can do that. Here in Toledo, it's it's a little bit more competitive in the neighborhoods that I buy in, but the properties are worth it in my opinion. It's the best cash flow market in the country, or certainly top five.
Okay. And by cash flow, explain that a little more.
So if my mortgage payment is $600, a pretty standard mortgage payment here in Cincinnati, or I'm sorry, Toledo, on a 30-year, amortized loan at, yeah. So if I'm paying the mortgage company $600 a month and my property's bringing in $1,200 a month, minus my expenses, which may include, some minor maintenance issues, and then, like I said, I self-manage. Maybe we call the maintenance issues $100 a month. That's probably aggressive, but whatever. If we're calling that 700 total, minus my 1,200 minus 700, that's $500 a month cash flow in my pocket.
Ah, okay, okay. So that's what you mean. So cash flow meaning income comes in, mortgage is paid, expenses set aside, like for maintenance, and then cash flow is what's
Right,
left
it's
over.
income after expenses. Right.
All right, awesome, awesome. Now, COVID-19 has, well, before I go there, so you mentioned Cincinnati some too. What has been your experience in Cincinnati? So we got two different areas, Toledo, Cincinnati, both in Ohio, but totally different ends of Ohio, north versus south. What has been your difference in experience between the two?
So Cincinnati is much more, at least my investment strategy in Cincinnati was much more appreciation oriented. You never necessarily want to invest in appreciation. You should always look at the deal, in my opinion, and make sure that it cash flows, because that's going to give you cushion to hold it for forever if you want to. And then worst case scenario, your loan's paid off and you own this property and you didn't really pay because your tenants paid the note off for you. So I own in neighborhoods in Cincinnati that have experienced tremendous growth over the course of the past 3 to 5 years and continue to trend in that direction. Here in Toledo, the prices are a lot cheaper, so we cash flow better, but we're not necessarily getting that appreciation. I'm not going to sell my property in West Toledo for $100,000 more than what I purchased it for. Realistically, it's probably never going to happen. So,
Got
but in
it, got it.
Cincinnati, that does happen quite often and quite frequently.
Okay, so appreciation meaning the increase in value over time, just I kind of call it naturally, is what you mean.
That is correct. If you buy a property for $50,000 today, in 10 years it's worth $150,000, then your property appreciated $100,000 in 10 years. So
Got it, got it.
that's cool.
Only in real estate does that happen.
Only in real estate, right?
You didn't do anything. Well, you maintained it,
Right.
but
Well, the management is key. I mean, it's good, solid management is what makes or breaks, buy and hold investors.
right, right, right.
'Cause
And
if you're not getting rent and you're not chasing down rent, or the people you hire aren't doing that for you, then you're, in the hole every month and you're negative cash flow. So, that's not why anyone gets into this business.
right, 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 exactly. So naturally appreciates over time. If you do it right or hire someone to do it right, like a property manager like yourself, then the cash flow should be there and the building should still be standing. And
Should be. Yeah.
yeah, so it appreciates over time, increases in value, and then along the way, you collect a check, along the way also. But I always say the key is that, like on that management part, you have to make sure you're giving the tenants a good place to live.
Right. That's always I mean, the tenants have been especially buildings that I purchase where the tenants are like we're inheriting the tenants, right? You realize how poorly these people were treated by their previous landlord, and it's in some cases appalling. Like they didn't have heat or hot water for like
Wow.
weeks in the middle of the winter. Like what? That can't be legal, right?
Right.
And so you help these people out, and then they usually have a great appreciation for what you're doing for them. So, they're going to stay. That it builds a lot of loyalty when you go into a property and make these repairs for these tenants that have been living in the building for 7 years and haven't had anything taken care of in, the last 2 years because the landlord fell out of, isn't in love with the property anymore and just kind of lost interest. And, you go in and make those repairs. Those tenants are so incredibly grateful and you feel good. You're helping people out. You're giving people an awesome place to live, and in return, they're paying for the property that they live in, and hopefully, you're cash flowing a little bit on top of that.
Yep. Awesome. 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 I like it. I like it. Now, hopefully, you and your family have stayed healthy during this trial we're all in, known as COVID-19. How has that affected your investments at all?
So it really hasn't had as tremendous of an impact as I thought it would, but the space that I'm in, the rents are so affordable that it would be, I guess, it would have to be really bad for people not to be able to afford to pay rent. So that hasn't, I mean, one or two here and there due to COVID, but you just kind of deal with it and solve the issue. You try to work with people, especially during these tough times, but you also have a business to run. So people need to understand that there's, a note on the house, or, even if you own the house cash, you still have, your cash wrapped up in the house. It's an investment. It's a business. While you're providing them with a great service, you have to get paid in order for that service. So that's the way we look at it, and it's worked out through COVID so far. From an agent standpoint, I've seen more listings that don't allow you to walk through the property before placing an offer or giving proof of funds. But other than that, business has remained relatively consistent. It seems like prices are rising a little bit especially on multifamily. The inventory is very low, especially in the neighborhoods that I like here in Toledo. So we've had to use alternative methods to acquire deals, whether that be direct mail or looking into auctions, sheriff sales, tax sales, things like that. Any way we can find a deal.
Okay, awesome. All right, yep, yep. I'm with you there. Now, have you done anything different with your investments around COVID-19? Like you mentioned, working with the tenants, it's really a partnership. Like you said, you're giving them a place to stay, but you do have overhead yourself. Even if the property's paid off, you still have property tax, which never goes away. You still have maintenance. You mentioned drains and things that get clogged, so you still have to be able to do that. And if they don't pay, you can't. At some point, you're not able to do it. But have you changed your business or done anything different during COVID-19?
Not particularly. It's remained pretty consistent, and we treat our tenants extremely well, which is why I think we're not getting, the short end of the stick, so to say. So those landlords that, wait 2 weeks to repair a water heater and make their tenant shower in the cold for 2 weeks are more likely to get stiffed than the guy who sends their handyman out there right away. So, and has done that on other things as well. So, because if they're not fixing a water heater, that's a pretty, dire situation. Someone doesn't have hot water, then they're likely not fixing other things within the property. If you treat your tenants well and you treat people the way you want to be treated, they typically try to treat you the same.
Yeah, yep, yep. I'm with you there. I agree there. Make them a priority, and hopefully, in this time, if they can, they'll make the home a priority for you in terms of being able to hold up their end of the bargain with the lease or the rental payments.
Right.
Have you considered any other investments outside of multifamily?
Yeah, so I'm going to branch into the small business space, and I would like to do that through real estate, like a mixed use type of building.
Okay.
where the upper units in the building, say we have a storefront and then 2 or 3 units above that storefront. The
Okay.
units actually pay the rent for or pay the bills for the entire building. Let the business run without the worry of having to pay rent, which takes some stress off the business and therefore should allow more investment back into the business and hopefully cause the business to grow. I would like to start doing those types of deals.
Okay.
I just really think that the small business storefront space, especially here in West Toledo, where there's tons of, I wouldn't say tons, but there are some vacant buildings that fit this criteria that need help. And, these storefronts can really, you know, change the entire neighborhood. If you put in a couple, like a cool coffee shop and like maybe a nice pizza place or, something just nice to give the residents here a reason to want to continue to live here. And people maybe want to move here because they want to be in the cool part of town that's kind of trendy and starting to, turn a little bit.
Okay, I like that. So help the business because they don't have that overhead in terms of a lease, and maybe there is a lease, but it's just if something goes wrong, things get tight. At least they don't have that overhead to where they have to move or go out of business. So I like that. And then the tenants above, residential tenants, kind of pay that overhead for the entire building.
Overhead for the entire building, yeah. And really should, in this market in Toledo, Ohio, you could probably find a deal where you're cash flowing even after, you're like significantly cash flowing after your mortgage payment is paid, and you're still not charging the business any rent because you own the business.
Nice,
So
nice. I
you
love
can do
that.
that here
Helping,
in Toledo because it's so cheap.
yeah, helping the neighborhoods. There are some neighborhoods
Yeah,
that need, and a lot of communities, major cities, small cities all over the place. There's some neighborhoods that just need just a little bit of a urge or a kick to kind of get going. Just takes one or two retailers to kind of help that. And if they can go in and those retailers can come in without the overhead of a lease, or at least worry about that, then that'll help the communities and neighborhoods a whole lot. We'll have to talk after the show. I saw a property that might fit your criteria. You probably saw it already since you're a broker, but
yeah.
I'll tell you about it in case you
Oh, I
didn't. And
appreciate that.
yeah,
Yeah.
maybe it'll help you on that journey. So how have your goals changed from when you started? I talked about that to where they are now.
I would say that they were more income focused when I first started trying to build, and that's really what I was worried about. Now I'm more so worried about having an impact on the neighborhood that I live in. So I really like this neighborhood. It's a hot spot for investors, which is a good and bad thing, depending on who the investor is and who's managing their. Some people don't like to put money back into their properties. That's not the way that we look at it. We like to be at the top of the market rent wise. And in order to do that, you're making your properties nicer. In exchange for doing that, though, you're typically getting a nicer tenant, more qualified tenant that is easier to deal with. So there's more work on the front end, but there's less work on the back end after you place a tenant in there. Uh, this neighborhood has a lot of investors that haven't done any work to their properties in years, and then I end up getting the property, or the property ends up getting so bad that they condemn it or try to sell it through the land bank, Lucas County Land Bank, and uh, disconnect the water, and that's never good. Just to have vacant homes sitting in your neighborhood. So that's where my goals have kind of transitioned to, is having still somewhat income focused. You want to have a successful business, but using your skills and knowledge to help the neighborhood stabilize and help the people within the neighborhood, feel like they want to stay in the neighborhood rather than moving to, more west, which is kind of the thing in Toledo. It's the neighborhoods
Yeah.
as you go more west, they get nicer and nicer, and we're kind of like west, but we're edge, kind of like the first neighborhood that's considered west. So I'd like to keep people here and help them feel like they're safe and have a good sense of community here, which does exist. You can tell that through the Halloween decorations and people taking care of their lawns and exterior of their homes. So it's not a bad place to live or invest or anything, but it could use more help, and that's kind of what I've been focusing on as of late.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. So landlords, I like that you said that. So landlords, investors, they get a bad rap to the typical normal person. But I think I've seen some articles that like the landlords are like the worst people ever. But I look at them just like, I don't know, landlord slash investor, whatever you want to consider it. But it's just like I don't, I kind of have some of the same goals as you. It's like I want to give people, a great place to be or stay or live. Firstly, that's like our number one priority, and then after that, we believe that if you, do good to others, it'll come back to you. Then, we take care of them, they'll take care of us. But I don't get it. I wish there were more people like yourself, and then maybe that tide would start to turn in terms of the kind of the overall hierarchy of people thinking that landlords are just so bad. But I don't
Right.
know.
Well, they've had a bad experience with the landlord, likely. How many landlords are answering the phone when you call them at 9 o'clock on a Friday because their drain's clogged?
Yeah.
Like, not many, right? That's really one of the reasons I decided to get into real estate. I lived in 5 different places in my 4 years at the University of Cincinnati. Not one of them was legitimate from a property management perspective. And I thought, wow, this is honestly incredible. I'm paying, a absolutely ridiculous rent amount, and these folks are not servicing me the way that they should be. And there's a business opportunity here. So that's really what started my interest in real estate. I also like the tangible aspect, but the fact of the matter is 90% of landlords don't really care too much about their tenants. They care about the bottom line. And if you're willing to care about your tenants and treat people the way that you want to be treated, you have a distinct advantage over the vast majority of investors. And it's that philosophy has worked out in my business thus far, and I can't really see that changing as people are spending more time at home and less time in the office or at school or wherever they were working at before.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I'm glad we had you on the show. Hopefully this show gets out to a lot of people who even aren't investors so they can kind of understand kind of the business side of it and kind of understand there is a difference, between landlords or investors from place to place or person to person. As we close the show, just a few more things. What tips would you give? So you've been doing this a long time. You've seen I'll say the renter side of it, because like you said, part of your motivation of getting into real estate was that you were a renter and were not getting serviced the way you should have been from your landlord or investor of the building. And then you've got experience as an agent, now a broker, and as well as an investor. So what would be some tips you would share with other fellow investors?
The more deals you look at and the more deals you analyze, the better you're going to become at analyzing deals and assessing what differentiates a good deal from a bad deal. So like anything, the more reps you put in, the stronger you're going to get. And it's no different with real estate. It's very consistent with a lot of other elements of life. And, if you're going to put in the work to feel comfortable, or hire someone, if you have the cash and don't necessarily want to do the real estate work, hire someone to do that for you. If you're interested in investing in real estate, there's lots of different ways to do it. I have investors that do it all sorts of ways. There's some investors that are super hands-on despite being out of town. There's other investors that are super passive and, here are the keys, Derek, drive the car, and trust me fully to do that. Everyone has their own, motion. It's different strokes for different folks. It all depends on your personality and how you want to run your real estate investment business. There's no right way to do it. Lots of people have been successful in real estate and lots of people have done it different ways.
All right. All right. I like that. Why do you think most never get started in terms of investing?
I think there's an initial fear. What happens if I fail? What will, so-and-so think about me if this doesn't work out? And, I usually are talking about it because you're so excited about it. And then this doesn't work out. But the fact of the matter is we're humans, right? So we have an extraordinary ability to solve problems. And really that's all that real estate boils down to, is solving problems. So if you're able to, when your tenant calls you, if you're able to send a guy out there or a girl, whoever is your repair person, and make a repair quickly, then you're solving that problem. And that's just one of many problems, right? Like you might have to find a cheaper insurance quote and find an agent that, wants to insure you. You might have to apply for tax reductions. Like there's just all sorts of stuff. But at the end of the day, it boils down to a problem, and, you're solving the problem. It's not like it's rocket science. It's actually very simple in a lot of instances.
Yeah, and as you practice more and more, you kind of come across some of the same problems. And you solved a problem there in Cincinnati, like you said. You were renting or leasing, and the landlord, so the property manager's building wasn't servicing you, so you kind of got into the business yourself and doing it right.
Absolutely, yeah. That's really where it all started. Thinking back, it's really from my college days and how poorly I was treated by 5 different management companies that are specialized in student housing. And it's not like college students are picky, like I can live in some pretty, like stuff that some of my tenants certainly wouldn't be comfortable with. But when I need something fixed, I need something fixed when I can't take a hot shower, that's an issue.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I'm paying you, above market rent because it's a student housing, they charge by the bedroom. So they're getting a lot of rent in those buildings in Cincinnati.
Yeah, so solving problems. So I wrote down, been taking some notes here when I look away from you here. So fear, you talked about, is one reason people don't get started. So COVID-19 probably increases that fear because to, the typical person, they think like, oh no, COVID-19, I'll just wait until after that is over to invest, or then it's the next thing. I'll wait until after that, and then then things will be better. I'll wait till the market goes down, and then it goes down and back up. So that's one more fear. What would you say to people who are letting COVID-19 now stop them from considering investing?
Yeah, it's always something, right? If it's not COVID, it's who wins the presidential election, or something along those lines. Like it really doesn't make too much sense. Like I said, my business hasn't really changed from an acquisition standpoint. We're acquiring just as many deals as we really were during COVID, before pre-COVID, and you just can't let things stop you. You got to jump in at some point. I mean, definitely make sure you feel comfortable before you're jumping in, but you should be putting in the work now. If you're at home and you can't really do much like we all are right now, then you should be putting in the work. You can choose to, make this a turning point in your life, or you can choose to let it kind of just linger and you kind of just go through the motions of life without taking control. And, I like to work with those individuals that see challenging times as an opportunity rather than, an excuse.
I like that. Yep. Using the challenging times as an opportunity. Yeah, I like that. Now, how would you encourage others to get started? They're listening, they're sitting at home. Like, what would you say is the first step?
The first step is to decide a market that you want to invest in. So maybe and it's all going to be different from person to person. I personally like investing in the neighborhood that I live in. That's, there's a multitude of reasons that I like that, but that's not necessarily true for everyone. I have clients that live in Los Angeles, and you just can't afford to buy, like deals just don't pencil out there for them. So they choose to invest in Toledo. You may choose to invest in Cincinnati. You may choose to invest in Detroit. There's tons of options. Maybe you don't want to do the Midwest, so you invest in Florida or something, like there's just so many options. You really want to, figure out what you want to do, what fits your strengths, and, kind of jump in from there. Start analyzing deals, getting comfortable with certain neighborhoods, maybe talk to a realtor. Lender is always important, especially during COVID. We've seen quite significant delays in financing. So you want to make sure that you have your lending stuff together before if you come buttoned up to me, like with a pre-approval letter and stuff, I'm way more likely to take you seriously than if you're just kind of, hey, I want to invest in Toledo, but haven't done anything yet. You're going to be taken a lot more seriously if you're buttoned up and prepared and, ready to go, and know the neighborhoods you want to invest in. Your realtor can kind of point you in some the right direction, or what direction he or she would go. But, at the end of the day, you're the one who needs to feel comfortable with that. And learning the neighborhoods, or at least analyzing the rents in the neighborhoods and what you can expect, will go a long way in helping you feel comfortable jumping into your first deal.
Okay, okay, awesome. And we've talked about the difference between asset classes and neighborhoods a little bit on the show, so hopefully the listeners will go back and listen to that. So you are now and this will be probably the second to last thing. So you recently completed one accomplishment. You started at the top of the show. I said I would come back to it. A brokerage. Tell the you're now a broker. Tell the listeners the difference. So we got agents, we investors, obviously, and what role does the broker fill?
So the licensed real estate salesperson works under the broker.
Okay.
So it would be like your insurance agent working under Allstate or Geico or Progressive. The broker is like Berkshire Hathaway or 21st Century Realty or Remax, right? Like that's the broker. So it's the next level of the license. It's the highest level of the license. It allows me to operate 100% autonomously and, as an individual, without having to worry about a broker or, fitting their rules. Because there's a lot of weird, funky rules with property management. And there's a lot of liability with property management that my former broker wasn't necessarily comfortable with. And, the goal has always been to be 100% independent. I like doing my own thing. I march to the beat of my own drum. So it was just a natural fit.
Okay, okay. So you've been an agent, or are, but now have your own brokerage. You provide property management services, and you're also an investor. So kind of a one-stop shop in terms of what you would need, the tools. Like you mentioned, there's the lending part of it as well. But how can listeners? There's a lot of things you could do to help others if they're serious, like you said. How can other investors or those that need your services or want to learn more get in contact with you?
Sure. So I don't do any of the social media stuff. I have enough distractions as is. The world is a crazy place, and I don't need that drama or added anxiety or whatever it may be added to my life. So I'm very simple. If you want to get in touch with me, you can either call my cell phone, which can we post these in the show notes?
Yeah, sure. I'll put it on the post
or
notes.
email. I'm typically pretty responsive, especially via cell phone, because tenants are always needing things fixed. So if you want to reach out, that's the best way to get a hold of me.
Okay, all right. I'll leave the email and phone number in the show notes. And I guess that's a wrap, Derek. Thank you for your time this morning, and look forward to getting this out to the listeners.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you for having me on, and best of luck to all of you.
All right, so I hope you enjoyed this discussion, this interview with Derek Deverna. I took a few notes I just want to go over. So financial freedom was Derek's number one goal. I think we talked about that in 17 or 18, episode 17 or 18. It might have been both. We talked about where does the money or where does the dollars come from to invest in real estate, and we got into what financial freedom is. In summary, it means different things to different people, but typically it always means having your expenses covered by an income stream, and that income stream not being something that takes up all of your time. So I'll leave it at that, but definitely go back and listen to 17 to 18 and read and think about what financial freedom will mean to you or could mean to you. Derek liked real estate because it's tangible. It's a physical structure, typically a building when it comes to real estate. In particular, he likes brick multifamily. He said he does some single family investing too, but he likes a brick structure. I agree with him there. There's no painting, there's no touching, there's not a lot of redoing and fixing on brick typically. So I'm all right with the brick multifamily, Derek. Appreciation versus cash flow. So what does appreciation mean? We talked about appreciation, natural appreciation versus forced appreciation in episode number 5. And we talk about cash flow in just about every show. Income minus expenses equals cash flow. When you talk to investors, when you talk to different people, cash flow in business and investment means different things, but income minus all expenses, including the mortgage, covers or shows your cash flow at the end of the day. So really, I brought Derek on the show partly or invited him to the show rather, partly for the knowledge he can share with others, the experience he can share with others and help you, but also I can see that we have some common goals and that tenants is a high priority in our businesses and our investments. There's a lot of investors out there, a lot of landlords out there. There's lots of ways to do it, and all those ways are probably right. But having tenants as a high priority in your business is a chief goal of ours, and it's definitely a chief goal of Derek's, as you heard. And I can see it in his properties that I've seen, some of his properties that I've seen. I haven't seen all of them, but I can see the quality and the care that goes into his properties. I know that tenants, as he said, is a high priority, number one priority in his business. So what can you do? How can you get started if you haven't started? How can you continue if you are already an investor, an active investor? Derek says, look at more deals. Use challenging times as an opportunity, not an excuse. So we know COVID-19 has transformed our world a lot, and use that as an opportunity. Look for the opportunity there. If it's not that, then it's the presidential election. Use that as an opportunity. Don't use it as an excuse. And whatever else comes up in the future, use it as an opportunity. Look for the opportunity, not an excuse. And I mentioned the term active investor there. Remember, there's active versus passive. Active is the investor, maybe like Derek explained and like what he does, where he's out looking for the opportunities. He used the word scavenger. He's out really, really hard looking for opportunities, looking for deals. And you have to do that because everything is not a deal. There may be an opportunity. There may be something available for sale. There may be something otherwise available, but it's not necessarily a deal. It might not meet your goals. I talk on the show a lot about your goals also being a higher priority, and your goals, finding a deal or opportunity to match those goals. So the active investor is out there looking for opportunities, looking for deals. They're working on their deal. They're overseeing the deal. They're managing others who may manage the property. And then they're also maybe selling the property at the appropriate time too, if so desired. There's the passive investor side of it as well, where maybe you don't have an interest in out looking for the opportunities, looking for the deals, overseeing the asset, but maybe you just want to invest your dollars and get a good return. So Derek mentioned in the show that at times he's partnered with others where he puts in his time and others put in their dollars and or something in between, and they use that as a way to invest going forward. So whatever you decide, if you are already an investor, already an active investor, keep doing that. Look at more deals according to Derek. And if you have not gotten started, again, use challenging times as an opportunity. If you are working from home or otherwise spending more time at home and maybe have a little bit more downtime, start looking for opportunities. Start deciding what your goals are. Start deciding if you want to be an active investor or if you want to be a passive investor and invest alongside or with others. Remember, your savings account is not enough. It doesn't grow your wealth. You need an investment vehicle. Something like the stock market might help, or maybe just the tangible alternative investment of real estate. So, did you enjoy the show? Do you have comments? Do you have questions? You can get in contact with us. Derek left his information for us, his phone number and his email address. It's at neelyrealty.com/podcast. That's NILEE realty.com/podcast. Look for this episode, this show, number 20. And in the show outline, you'll see Derek's phone number and his email address. Maybe he can help you out, or maybe you can help him. If you have any questions for me or about the show in general, while you're there, click the Ask a Question button, and I'll respond to you directly or maybe live on the show. Lastly, if you did enjoy the show, share it with someone else, and I'll see them and you back here next time on the It's Attainable Real Estate Investing Show.
You have been listening to the It's Attainable Real Estate Investing Show, sharing transparent knowledge on investing and the powerful impact real estate investing can have on your wealth and lifestyle. Follow or subscribe to the show using your favorite podcast app so you'll know firsthand when a new show is released, or visit neelyrealty.com/podcast and see the show there. That's NILEE realty.com/podcast.